What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and fantasy football is a week-to-week game. And every week, all of us are scrambling to figure out what has changed, what is new, what is this new information that we can take to win our matchups or feel better about our teams. And it's why rest of season rankings are so polarizing and popular at this point in the year, is because if a quarterback has a big game or a wide receiver breaks out or a running back gets hurt and the guy behind them leapfrogs up to the top of the rest of season rankings, we all want to know about how we should adjust our expectations for our team. Should we feel better or worse than we did last week? You guys love rest of season rankings. I thought that this would be a fun video to do here on a Wednesday where, yes, we covered a lot in the 10 lessons learned video, but some of that stuff slips through the cracks. So today we are going to talk through my 8 players skyrocketing up my rest of season rankings in week 7 of the fantasy football season. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. And the first player skyrocketing up my rankings actually is going to be a twofer here. We're going to talk about the Bucs wide receivers. I have Mike Evans going from my wide receiver 33 to my wide receiver 17. That's like a 16 spot jump. And then we have a Emeka Egbuka going from my wide receiver 9 to my wide receiver 13. Now, it's very simple how we're going to do this video. Every Tuesday night, I drop my rest of season rankings over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. So if you want to know how I have Mike Evans versus a guy like Brian Thomas or Jalen Waddle, you can find that there. And it's been a good resource for people to look at before they do their waiver wire claims on Tuesday night, is to glance at how I have my rest of season rankings all set up. Now, with Mike Evans, he's kind of skyrocketing here almost just because of the chaos of this Bucs wide receiver room, right? Emeka Egbuka goes down. Hate to see it. And we're now kind of scrambling where this is a quarterback in Baker Mayfield who is contending for an MVP. This is an offense that's 6th in scoring, 7th in passing yards per game. We want pieces on this offense, and I believe that they will be supporting 2 top 24 wide receivers when they get healthy. It's just a matter of which ones get healthy when. We have Chris Godwin, who seems like the most banged up. We have I wouldn't call this a timetable here, but we have Mike Evans from Jeff Mueller. Mike Evans has a chance to practice this week. He might be able to return as soon as this week in week 7. Then we have Emeka Egbuka, who we probably aren't going to see until week 10, right? You have week 7, week 8, and then a week 9 bye for the Bucs. Could potentially be back after that. Chris Godwin's already ruled out and seems like he's going to be a shell of himself until maybe the very tail end of the season. And Mike Evans is screaming up my rankings because he now kind of finds himself as the only guy in this wide receiver room. If he's back this week, he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver play. If he's back in week 8, he's going to be a top 15 play without Emeka Egbuka. And then even when Egbuka comes back, I think that Mike Evans is going to be absolutely fine out of the bye week. You also have to understand that it sounds, I don't know if corny is the right word, but this 1,000-yard record means a lot to Mike Evans, where last year he went from 14.3 points per game, then injured his hamstring, came back and went to 20.7 points per game just to catch that record. Now, of course, Godwin was healthy for that 14.3 point per game stretch. Godwin goes down, Evans comes back, and then he balls out. But we're in the similar spot here where Evans is going to come back and Godwin will be hurt still. Egbuka could be banged up. Look, I love Egbuka. I would love for him to come back immediately in week 10, but there's a chance that he has a setback or he comes back and he pulls it again. Like, there's a lot of different upside scenarios for Mike Evans to just be the guy in one of the best offenses attached to one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now in Baker Mayfield. So if he's going to chase this 1,000-yard record, we could see him go really turn things on as like a top 15 wide receiver down the stretch. So again, Evans gets a huge bump up. And then I assume a lot of you guys wanted to know, where does Egbuka go? Because I had a lot of questions about that for the top 10 lessons learned video, but we didn't have a lot of info at that time. It seems like my baseline expectation is out week 7, out week 8, bye week 9, back week 10. And if that happens, he's still like a fringe top 12 wide receiver for me, and maybe even like a buy low candidate if you are in a good spot. Now, my second player skyrocketing up the rankings is Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle is a polarizing one. He goes from my RB33 to my RB19, 14 spots up the rankings because he just went absolutely nuts. Of course, yes, it was against the Dolphins. Yes, it was against the Cowboys, but there's just something to be said about being one of the handful of guys to ever put up like 200 plus yards from scrimmage in back-to-back games. It's not like, I mean, Saquon played Dallas in week 1 and he didn't like have an amazing day. Breece Hall played Dallas a couple weeks ago and was like, okay. It's one thing to have like, okay, it's a plus matchup, it's a good matchup. It's another to just go absolutely nuclear like Rico Dowdle did. Yeah, back-to-back weeks of 30 plus PPR points. I mean, 206 rushing yards and a touchdown versus Miami. And then last week he gets 30 rush attempts for 183 yards, 5 targets, 4 catches, 56 yards, and a receiving touchdown. He was the Carolina Panthers' leading receiver in this game. And I think that it can't be understated how much Rico Dowdle has like supercharged this team. This is a 1-3 team kind of floundering here where Bryce Young was struggling and Canales needs to start winning games here. And Dowdle has put the team on his back. If you remember, I think they were down 17-3 to the Dolphins 2 weeks ago, and Dowdle just kicked it into this next gear and was amazing. So we now have an interesting situation because Chuba Hubbard expects to play week 7, is back at practice, and now kind of the thing on everybody's mind is what is this split going to look like moving forward? And here's my read on it. Is Rico Dowdle had a hot 2-game stretch here, but he also had a really hot stretch at the tail end of last season for the Cowboys. This is a good stat from Brett Whitefield here, showing that in Rico Dowdle's last 9 starts, he is actually on a 2,000-plus yard rushing pace. He's actually been good. It's crazy to say that Rico Dowdle has been like a good NFL running back. The Cowboys let him walk, and they took Javonte Williams instead. But Rico Dowdle has been absolutely amazing. And then we also get this stat from Pat Thorman here showing that Rico Dowdle has 172 more rushing yards, 4 times as many forced missed tackles, 5 times as many 10-plus yard runs than Chuba Hubbard had in the first 4 games. So he's just been absolutely outplaying Chuba Hubbard. Now, I'm not going to completely discard Chuba Hubbard. He is a team captain on this team. He's gotten extended in like the last calendar year. This is a guy that the Panthers like and want to see succeed, and they believe in. But again, you're in a spot where you're 2-0 on the back of Rico Dowdle, and I just don't think that you can put the toothpaste back in the tube. We had a question here from the media saying, has Rico Dowdle earned the right to be the Panthers starting running back? Dave Canales says, we'll see. Now, I think that can be interpreted however you want, but to me, him being non-committal, I think is huge. He could have easily said, Chuba Hubbard's our guy, we paid him, he's our captain, and he will be the starting running back this week. Instead, it's more of a, we'll see what happens. And I think that at least leaves the door open to be Rico Dowdle's backfield until it isn't, until he's inefficient, until he fumbles, whatever. But I think for the time being, it will be Dowdle. Now, before Hubbard got hurt, this was a split of like 65-35 in favor of Hubbard. I think it's not going to flip. I would guess in this first game back, it'll be a 65 Rico Dowdle, 35 split Chuba Hubbard. And if you remember in those first 4 weeks when Hubbard was healthy, Rico Dowdle had the goal line work. So my expectation would be Dowdle goal line, honestly, Dowdle goal line, Dowdle receiving role, and then Chuba Hubbard just kind of mixes up between the 20s in kind of like maybe they even like rotate drives here and we see 2 drives for Dowdle, 1 drive for Chuba Hubbard. But I just think with Rico Dowdle, you have to ride the hot hand. I think this Panthers running game and offense is just looking a lot better these days as well. And I don't know, when a guy goes back-to-back 30-plus fantasy points, it's just really tough. They also get the Jets this week, who aren't good on defense. And then they get Buffalo, who just got gashed by Bijan. Was the only good game for Derrick Henry this year was against the Buffalo Bills. So there's still runway here for Rico Dowdle to be good. And you have to remember as well, this is always the thing here with these rest of season rankings, and why I think a video like this is good is because I have my thoughts when I do the 10 lessons learned video on Monday, and then I sit down and when I rank these players, it's genuinely an excruciating process. Like I'm sitting there for 2+ hours, thinking between like Rico Dowdle and Bill Krosky-Merritt and Kenneth Walker and David Montgomery and Jalen Warren and J.K. Dobbins. And to be honest, all those guys are in splits, right? Bill fumbles and is in a split with McNichols and Chris Rodriguez. Montgomery obviously behind Gibbs. You have Kenneth Walker in the Charbonnet thing. J.K. Dobbins has been phased out a little bit here down the stretch. And like RB19, again, it feels crazy because we're talking about Rico Dowdle, but it's a range of players that are so tricky. Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones will be back soon as well. It's just a tough range to rank. So I think Rico Dowdle, just based on what he's done so far, and if he keeps things up, I think that weekly RB2 sounds about right. Now, my third player, skyrocketing up rankings. We actually touched on this on Monday, so we'll keep this a little bit brief. We have Isaiah Pacheco goes from my RB40 to my RB29, 11 spots up the rankings. And that sounds crazy for a guy who did virtually nothing. Now, this is from the utilization report over on Fantasy Life. And you can see he only scored 5.6 PPR points last week, but I thought it was maybe the most encouraging game for Pacheco so far. He goes from 62% of the snaps to 77% of the snaps. That's a season high. He goes from 41% of the rush attempts to 60% of the rush attempts. Season high. Route percentage, 61% to 76%. Season high. Target share, 8% to 11%. Season high. Short down and distance snaps, 36% to 80%. Season high. And that is absolutely huge. If he can get the goal line roll and the short yardage roll away from Kareem Hunt and get trusted in those short yardage situations, that is going to be absolutely huge. This is a top 10 offense. They've been rolling with Mahomes, and especially when Rashee Rice comes back and the passing game gets going and these boxes lighten up, if Pacheco is going to get a workload like this, then all of a sudden he's absolutely in the RB2 conversation. So it sounds crazy to move a guy up 11 spots like this to RB29 after scoring 5.6 PPR points, but the role is really good, and if this holds for another week, he will absolutely get moved up to like the RB25, RB24. So I do want to just make it known out there for any of you guys who are rostering Isaiah Pacheco, it seems very dark, right? You maybe drafted him like the 5th round and he's been damn near unstartable. Things are turning around for Pacheco, all right? Things are turning around. It's time to start, cracking a smile on Pacheco. This might be where he really gets going here. Now, my 4th player skyrocketing up my rankings is DeAndre Swift. He goes up 7 spots from RB24 to RB17, and you can nitpick reasons for Swift to be this unappealing mid-RB2, because that's just what it feels like he always is and what he always does. But if you look at his entire career, it kind of is what he is, but that's not a bad thing at RB17. We look at his entire career. He has finished since his rookie year, RB15, RB8, RB15, RB24, RB21, and now this year he's RB14. All he's ever done is finish between RB8 and RB24 in points per game, and I think that this is one of the better spots that he's been, where he is the lead workhorse running back on a top 10 scoring offense attached to Caleb Williams, attached to Ben Johnson here. He improved his efficiency from last year where he was at 3.8 yards per carry. Now he's at 4.2 yards per carry, and something sort of clicked in this game where we saw Ben Johnson just say, you know what, let's stop running DeAndre Swift between the tackles, right, like into the A gap or B gap or whatever, and let's actually just get him outside of the tackle, essentially like his outside shoulder, and just do like kind of toss plays and just get him out on the perimeter. And that was huge for him. You can see from this chart, like all the green is outside. It's outside, but it works. Like the way that this offensive line is set up, this is a Bears run blocking unit that is 3rd in run block win rate as a team. So I don't even think that it's a bad blocking issue between the tackles. It's just kind of Swift's skill set. Like that's just what he's always been, is between the tackles, not great. But if you get him outside on space, and we saw it too in the receiving game, just give him the ball in space. He's going to make plays. He had 2 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. And this was a signature game for DeAndre Swift. And I think that at this point in the year, things like that matter. This was a big primetime game. This was the get back and redemption spot for the Bears after the crazy Hail Mary last year. And it happened on the back of DeAndre Swift. I'm not really convinced that Roschon Johnson or Monangai are real threats to DeAndre Swift. So you now find him as the RB1 on a good team. And he, to me, wherever you have Travis Etienne in your rest of season rankings, Swift should be right there. Just like a fine RB2 in a good situation with a good role. Does he have upside to be the RB10 or something? Not really, but he's fine for what he is and where you drafted him in fantasy. Then we'll talk about my 5th player skyrocketing up rankings. Aaron Jones. This one's just like quick and easy. He goes my RB38 to my RB31. The Vikings come off of bye here. Aaron Jones is eligible to return from IR next week. And Jordan Mason's been good, but he hasn't been some world beater like Rico Dowdle. And I'm not saying that Jordan Mason's going to be unstartable when Jones is back. I would just expect almost a even 50-50 split once Aaron Jones returns, maybe like a couple weeks after he returns. And if that's the case, he's still Aaron Jones. He's a pass-catching back with juice attached to Kevin O'Connell in this offense. I think J.J. McCarthy will improve, or maybe, I don't know. I doubt that they roll with Carson Wentz for much longer, but I like this offense to improve. Their offensive line is getting healthier through the bye, and with these players who are hurt, like a Mike Evans, like an Aaron Jones, you just have to remember, like, every week that we get better news or, like, a lack of negative news, they move up. Somebody who didn't move up is like a Bucky Irving. He gets ruled out so quickly. He, if anything, I think they've been downplaying the Bucky Irving injury. So something to keep an eye on is Bucky Irving. was not. So same thing with Hampton as well, where it was like, oh, he'll be back right after the 4 weeks. That just wasn't the case. Now they're like, no, he's probably going to be gone long after he's back or due back from IR. So just something to keep an eye on. Aaron Jones, it's been relatively quiet. It seems like he's going to be back pretty much immediately. Then our 6-player skyrocketing up rankings is Chris Olave. For my wide receiver 36, my wide receiver 30, 6 spots up the rankings. And he's kind of a meme at this point of like positive regression where all of these charts, shout out to Fantasy Points data here, Chris Olave is on the far right when you look at expected fantasy points per game versus actual fantasy points per game, which means he's really due for regression. He should be getting, back up to that red dotted line. And if that happened, he'd be, right on par in terms of points per game with guys like JSN and Puka and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think he's going to creep back there. And even if he doesn't, he's been the wide receiver 27 in points per game. So even like a tough situation, wide receiver 30 might even be too low. Again, like wide receiver 27 in usage. He's scoring decently well. He's kind of like a PPR scam guy. Volume says he should be scoring more, and that's because he's a 31% target share guy on an up-tempo Kellen Moore offense. And the thing about this Kellen Moore offense is, yes, it's up-tempo, and people had thought before, well, Spencer Rattler's not really an NFL quarterback. Spencer Rattler, this is kind of like a Spencer Rattler, not like rant or anything, but Spencer Rattler's been decent this year. You look at this chart from Billy M, EPA per dropback. He's like right next to Michael Penix there. Adjusted net yards per attempt, he's like right next to Bo Nix. QBR is actually better than Bo Nix, better than Penix, and better than Jaden Daniels. His passing grade is better than Bo Nix, better than Penix, and better than Caleb Williams. His clean pocket grade is better than Bo Nix and Penix. Under pressure grade is behind only Drake May. His adjusted completion percentage is behind Bo Nix and Caleb Williams. His big-time throw rate above 4%. Above Bo Nix and above Michael Penix. I'm not saying that he's going to be like a franchise quarterback or anything great, but I think that we're past the days of like Spencer Rattler being in the same bucket as like what Jake Browning was for a few weeks there for the Bengals. Like Spencer Rattler, I think, I don't want to get too crazy, right? Like we don't know what the Saints are going to do. Are they going to draft a quarterback, whatever, but he's showing some life here, Spencer Rattler. So just something to keep a note of. He's somebody in Dynasty that is like absolutely worth like kind of holding on to. I remember I was drafting a lot of him in rookie drafts and was disappointed last year, but the fact that he's beat out Tyler Shuck and now he's being like, again, I'm not going to call him like a top 10 quarterback or anything crazy or a franchise quarterback, but he's at the very least not the worst starter in the NFL, which I think is actually above expectation for Spencer Rattler. Now, we do also know Chris Olave is at the top of all these trade rumors of could he go to the Giants, could he go to there's like a billion to the Giants, the Patriots, whatever. On one hand, I'm like, oh man, Drake May would be a huge upgrade for Chris Olave. Jackson Dart, not so much in terms of passing game. Like Jackson Dart's been great for fantasy, but in terms of passing yards per game, hasn't been great. But his receivers have been like Bo Collins and Lil Jordan Humphrey. So we'll see how that goes. But I think it's kind of a wash either way. He could be perceived as an upgrade or this kind of like PPR scam role of 30% plus target share attached to Rattler in this Kellen Moore offense. I think we're eventually going to see him keep on improving here. Then our 7th player skyrocketing on my rankings, Dallas Goedert, from my tight end 13 to my tight end 8. And it's just kind of that tight end is a revolving door, right? We saw the first few weeks Juwan Johnson was up there. Then we saw a little Hunter Henry pocket. And now it's Dallas Goedert's time. And it's just kind of this revolving door of like who can you slot up to tight end 8, right? Because you have, essentially the top 7, you have from, in any order of like Trey McBride, Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, Jake Ferguson, Brock Bowers, George Kittle, Sam Laporta. Those are the top 7. And then tight end 8 is just a revolving door. But Dallas Goedert's a tight end 2 in points per game. He's a tight end 3 in expected points per game, which is just your volume based on your targets, your ADOT, your red zone volume, all of that. And this is a stat from JJ Zachariason. Dallas Goedert had a 34% target share against the Giants on Thursday. He's now been above the 30% target share mark twice in 5 games this year. In 2024, his highest target share in a single game was 30.6%. He was above the 30% mark just that one time. So already through, and he missed a game or two with injury, but already through his 4 to 5 games, he's hit 30% plus target shares twice. That's not going to stick, but he's definitely a bigger piece of this offense with a new coordinator, Patullo. And then there's also like A.J. Brown trade rumors. I'd be shocked, but there is upside there. If A.J. Brown gets moved, then all of a sudden Dallas Goedert's the number 2 passing option for the Eagles, which I think would be very valuable in fantasy football. And then my 8th player skyrocketing up rankings is DK Metcalf for my wide receiver 26 and my wide receiver 27. I will take the L on this one. I had him as a sell heading into the bye week. Comes out of this bye, 9 targets, 4 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown versus the Browns. And he's absolutely balling, man. I really can't take anything away from him. This is somebody that is playing like real wide receiver this year, where he has the second highest yak per reception, third highest passer rating when targeted, fourth in fantasy points per route run, sixth in yards per route run, 10th in first downs per route run, 12th in points per game on the 39th most usage. So most of the time I would say, well, he's 39th in volume, but he's 12th in production, but he's also just balling out of his mind. And there's also a certain thing to be said that he's my wide receiver 21 right now, but he's the wide receiver 12 in points per game. So I think that already kind of bakes in any regression or him being a low volume guy. He is this Steelers passing offense. And I didn't get it on this screenshot, but I think the most fascinating part is that his entire career, he has been X receiver on the outside, beat press, down the field. That has been his entire MO. He's playing like a complete wide receiver. Now, of course, still X wide receiver focused and still doing the thing that he does best, but he's also now expanding his role more than we've ever seen, where he's at a 22% slot rate. That's a career high. 10.4 yard ADOT. That's a career low. Now, ADOT, you'd like to be higher, but to me, this is huge for Metcalf, where he's always been somebody that operates like 15, 16 yards downfield. The fact that he's now operating near the first down marker, like that is real wide receiver stuff. Like that is all 3 level wide receiver stuff that we haven't seen in the past from him. So I think that that's very exciting. Career high yards per out run for him. And then his 82.4 receiving grade. His career high before that was in his second year when he was absolutely balling with an 82.5 receiving grade. So DK Metcalf is kind of having a career resurgence here. And I just wanted to put some respect on his name. Now, that's not going to do it for us here today. As always, if you want access to my complete rest of season rankings, you can check that out over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart in the description or the comment section down below. And I will have a trade targets video out for tomorrow, along with my week 7 rankings on the Patreon tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like